back to the Daily Report. This is the marketplace tonight. We talk about reskilling and upskilling of the job market. Already in studio, we have the Principal Secretary for the Ministry of Labour. We're talking about skills, we're talking about upskilling. Mr. Geoffrey Kaituko, welcome to TV47.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
First, we must ask, of course, and we ask a lot of government officials who come to this show, what would you rate within your tenure of about a year? What would you rate your performance between 1 to 10?
Thank you very much. That is something that other people should do. But because we've done so much in the last few months, I think I'll give myself a 9.
A 9 is a very good number to work with.
Yes.
And of course, we're going to be getting comments from Kenyans who are already watching this. You can give us your questions and your feedback at TV47 News on Facebook and at TV47KE on X, which is Twitter. First, we must talk about TVET. A lot of institutions or agencies are saying that TVETs don't necessarily give the skills that are required within the job market. And when we're looking to exporting, when we're looking to export workers, this is the first thing that they look for. Do you feel like the curriculum that we have is efficient?
Well, thank you very much. That's a very important concern because, as you very well know, skills and skills development in particular are the currency of the modern labor market. And therefore, without the relevant skills in any labor market, whether we are talking of the domestic market here at home or the foreign labor markets in different countries, you will not be able to access opportunities that you need for employment. And so, yes, it is important for us to upskill and reskill our people. And those are terms that are commonly used in the area of education and training, particularly when you are looking at the workplace. A reason being that there are a number of forces which are driving a change in the modern labor market, such that the skills that you had 5, 10 years ago will most probably be obsolete today. And for that reason, you will need new skills or completely different kind of skills for you to survive or even to be relevant as an employee in the modern labor market.
Bwana PS, we are aware that there is a labor migration policy that your department has been pushing, and this is supposed to be a game changer. If you could just tell us a little bit about it.
Yes, you know, one of the problems we've had with labor migration is that that space hasn't been regulated by government before. And you know, in as much as it's our role to facilitate the private sector so that we get jobs for Kenyans, it's also important that we regulate the market. And so with the policy, which was approved by Cabinet on the 8th of August, and which has since been taken to Parliament, and it's now referred to as Session of Paper number 5 of 2023, it is going to strengthen coordination of labor migration. It is addressed a lot of weaknesses in the current legislation. And this policy is the basis on which we've drafted the National Labor Migration Management Bill. And that bill is currently undergoing public participation. From there, it will go to Cabinet, and then it will find its route into Parliament, so that Parliament can therefore be able to debate and also legislate. Currently, we don't have a law that governs that space, and that is why, for example, a while back when the Minister of Labour imposed a moratorium on the private recruitment agencies that operate in this country, because sometimes we say, why are people allowed to go to other countries to suffer? They went to court, and the court made a finding that the minister indeed didn't have any power to impose a moratorium. This is one of the things that we are going to be addressing in that bill. And so, as like any good law, because I'm a trained lawyer, policy precedes law or legislation. So that policy is a foundation on which the bill is being built.
And the Kenya Kwanza government is aiming to export about 1 million laborers. The Middle East is already having around 170,000 laborers. Of course, there was the deal signed by the president to, export laborers around 250,000 to Germany. What is the game plan exactly now that you're talking about this policy that is yet to be passed?
The game plan is we have adopted one approach as a country, and that is we have come up with proposed bilateral labor agreements, which we want to enter into with other countries that need our labor.
Right.
Remember, just like any other market, there are forces of demand and supply at play.
Right.
And also there are forces which are beyond our control: globalization, technology,
Right.
okay, demographics, and also climate change. All these are major drivers when it comes to labor migration. Now, Western Europe, North America, Australia are facing a different phenomenon from us. Their populations are aging.
Right.
Our population is young. In fact, our unemployment problem in Kenya is fundamentally a youth problem.
Right.
Between 19 and 24, because at that age, you don't have the skills for the labor market. Number two, you don't have capital to do business. And so for that reason, for those two reasons rather, you'll find that there's a large number of Kenyans who are unemployed on average. And so every year we churn out graduates who go into the market. And some of them are professionals. Now these countries, because of aging population, they no longer, and then the low birth rates, they no longer have the workforce in place to sustain those economies. And that is why they have gone ahead to change their own legislation.
Right.
Like, for example, the Federal Republic of Germany, Austria, they have come up with new legislation, Skilled Labor Migration Act, that is that now allows you to go to German without necessarily having any knowledge of German language. Before, if you wanted to go to Germany to work, you needed to have some working knowledge of German language. That is not the case anymore with Germany, with Austria. And so many countries are relaxing these rules, and that includes so that they can get people from this part of the world. We are the ones supplying labor. We are the source of labor. They are the destination. And so this is a phenomenon that is going to continue. Now, as government, what we've decided to do is to regulate, is to ensure that Kenyans are protected, that we are able to negotiate for our populations, for our people who go into those countries, unlike when they find their way without any governmental support. And so therefore, we, apart from BLS that we are sending out, that will be signing. Like for German, let me speak to that because you asked specifically.
Yes.
When the German Chancellor came to Kenya in May, our president requested that he considers Kenyan youth as migrant workers.
Right.
And what the Chancellor did is he made Kenya one of the 6 priority countries that will supply labor to Germany, one of the only 2 African countries. And then he appointed a special envoy for labor migration who was in Nairobi last week.
Right.
And so therefore we've had meetings with them. We met with my colleague PS Diaspora and the Minister of Labor and PS Immigration. We all met the Germany team. He came with a delegation from Berlin of about 8 people. And it's all because now we are about to enter into the next phase, which is negotiating the bilateral labor agreement between Germany and Kenya. We anticipate that we should be able to conclude the negotiations, and possibly, because Germans also have told us there is a lot to be done on their part, especially when it comes to the issue of visa issuance from their end. So therefore, we expect in the next 4 to 6 months to conclude that agreement.
4 to 6 months.
That's correct.
Buena Fies. To put things in perspective a little bit, about more than a million youth are unemployed. That is 35% of the youth. And of course, you've spoken about a multi-agency approach in order to ensure that we export labor to these markets. that are very lucrative to a lot of Kenyan workers. However, a lot of youth would argue that the entry requirements, getting a visa, getting your passport, since you talked about immigration, is still a challenge. How then can government agencies work better together to ensure that this dream is fulfilled?
Excellent. What we've done since this administration came into being,
right,
we've formed a structure. There's the rallying call here is we have to deliver as one government.
Of course.
And when we went to Riyadh in January this year, we visited the Filipino embassy, and we learned a lot from the Philippines. They have what is called the one country team approach. This is where all government agencies that are involved in labor migration are working together in unity to ensure that their citizens are protected.
Right.
You see, for every one Filipino that you see anywhere in the world, whether he is a seafarer, a hotel worker, an housemaid, there is a whole government behind that Filipino. There is internal security behind that person. There is labor. There is foreign. Okay?
Right.
There is immigration. Now, having adopted that approach, we are removing bottlenecks.
Right.
We have inaugurated a structure, a steering committee at the national level, which we lead as labor, but there are PSs from those sister departments.
Right.
Immigration has accepted to facilitate and to fast track the migrant workers as a special group. They've given them a desk and an officer here in Nairobi and also in Mombasa. But interestingly, sometimes our people don't like using the right channels.
Right.
This came to the fore during our recent encounter with the diaspora committee.
Right.
That while we were being encouraged to use a certain desk and a certain counter, you decide instead to use your own avenues. So we want to encourage agents who go to the State Department for Immigration to use the counter that is there, to use the desk that is there. Those officers are available to facilitate and to fast track the processing of travel documents. My colleague, Ambassador Bitok, last month alone, we gave him a list of 2,000 migrant workers, and they were able to process within the shortest time all those passports.
Buena PS, this of course brings into play the matter of ensuring that a lot of Kenyan workers are protected. You have spoken about taking the right channels and regulating agencies to ensure that this is fulfilled. A lot of Kenyans, however, would look back towards the South Sudan situation when there was civil unrest, and they would say, maybe our government doesn't really care about us. What framework is being used to protect them more?
No, actually, on the contrary, we did a lot as government. It's just that we can't shout on rooftops of what we did. My colleague, PS Roslyn Njogu of Diaspora Affairs, with a minister and colleague, who were able to lead that effort. We supported them with providing data of where Kenyans were, especially Kenyans who were working in Sudan, in Khartoum, because that is the area we're talking about when the war broke out. And I will tell you that was a very successful operation.
Okay.
Our military also assisted us in evacuating our citizens from Khartoum when the war broke out.
Right.
And we constantly engaged. And the information that was there was shared in real time. And so we were able to save our people from a catastrophic situation. Let me ask you a question.
What of the Middle East? As you, of course...
Yes, I'm coming to that.
What of the Middle East situation?
Yes. Do you have any case of a Kenyan who died in Khartoum?
Well, of course, we cannot go through that at this moment. However, there are several who have been abused and who have died in the Middle East.
Let's go to the Middle East. That's correct.
Okay.
When we came into office late last year, the Middle East was actually, I would say, was burning.
Okay.
Every day there was a body of a Kenyan which was being brought. There were also those who were abused. But then in the month of January, my cabinet secretary led a delegation. I was part of that delegation, and we went to Riyadh. We were welcomed, and we met our counterparts. What we did out of that engagement, one is that we were able to address the issues that were facing Kenyans. Remember, for 6 years, Officials from our government were not going to Saudi Arabia, particularly from the Ministry of Labor.
All right.
And you know, when you don't engage with your counterpart, the likelihood of an employer abusing an employee is very high.
Okay.
So we met them, we engaged with our Saudi counterparts, and surprisingly, I'll tell you, we were able to put in place a bilateral mechanism,
All right.
which I chaired on behalf of Kenya. There was a counterpart who was a deputy minister on the other side. And every 2 weeks, we discussed issues virtually after we came back. And then again, we sent a labor attaché. We have a labor attaché in Riyadh who is very proactive. He follows up on cases. So now let me ask you, when was the last time you saw a video from Saudi or any of those countries?
Of course, Buena PS. This
No. You need to be. Let's be realistic. When we do a good job, please commend us also.
However, we cannot gauge the protection of laborers based on social media videos.
No. Social media was very common. That is one.
Okay.
Number two, of course, is that we as a government, every time we get a case, either it is reported to our ministry or to the Ministry of Foreign and Diaspora Affairs, we engage directly with our counterparts. And that is why those cases have come down. So therefore, the abuse, which was there before,
right,
has actually, I would say, has reduced. I cannot say it's completely gone. Human societies have challenges, but we as a government have done what is within our power to ensure that Kenyan people and Kenyan migrant workers are protected. And that we do tirelessly and every day.
And that is assurance from the Principal Secretary for the State Department of course, Labor and Skill Development, which is an important thing for a lot of Kenyans to know. And other things that Kenyans should be knowing, especially on upskilling and reskilling, is that the government aims, to have one TVET in every ward. Of course, the Kenyan workforce of about 24 million people can get more skills on this. Of course, there is still a high disconnect between field requirements and training that is given in a lot of these TVETs. And the government, of course, aims to export about 1 million laborers, which is one of the promises that the president made when he was coming into power. Maybe if we could just shift towards revenue a little bit, the amount of income that we're getting into the country, it makes up, or diaspora remittance makes up for about 3% of the gross domestic product. We have all these laborers going outside of the country. We expect them to bring revenues. How can we drive up this number?
Yes, that's a very important question because, diaspora remittances have overtaken coffee, tea, tourism.
Right.
These have been the traditional foreign exchange earners for Kenya. And this is why we think, now that we have the best workforce in the world, the Kenyan workers are the best anywhere in this world. We have an opportunity of allowing them to go to countries where their skills will be utilized while earning money and making a decent living. And therefore, what we intend as a government is we are engaging with our other states,
right,
particularly where there are opportunities. We are doing market assessments so that we target every country differently. And so far, we have sent out 19 proposed bilateral labor agreements. That is 19 different countries. And therefore, it depends with where we are targeting. The Middle East, which is our traditional market, the GCC countries, now what they're doing is they're diversifying their economies.
Right.
They're looking into the future. And therefore, a country like Saudi Arabia is modernizing. They're doing great things there, and we want them to take our skilled labor instead of domestic labor. We want them to take hospitality people. Right. You look at other countries in Western Europe, they need nurses. In the US needs nurses. When you look at those figures that you quoted, right, the US tops, the UK follows. Then Saudi Arabia is number 3. In fact, it's about to overtake the UK.
Fantastic.
So then, meaning, if we continue engaging with them and allow our people to go and work there, we'll get more money. They just allowed us to take some nurses. People applied, but not very many. Out of the 29, whom we identified, they took 28.
Right.
And they told us, you're very good people.
Fantastic.
Yes.
Bwana PS, as we conclude this conversation, unfortunately, as scintillating as this conversation is, we have to wrap up the bulletin. We have a few minutes left. If you could just tell us, there are a lot of youth who are watching this at the moment. TV47 is a very dynamic channel, and we have a very large demographic watching at the moment. What would you tell the youth who are looking to go abroad to work there, however they're scared of, you know, their protection and how they're going to fare on in foreign countries?
I will tell them two things. One is they need to get recruited by agents who are licensed.
Right.
And I will encourage them to go into the NEA, the National Employment Portal. It's called NIAMIS. Therein, they can register. And then they will also find employers who have advertised.
Right.
And then there is also a list of all the agents who are licensed. The problems we have in the Middle East and other countries is because of migrant workers who are recruited by unscrupulous agents. So they need to visit the website, look at the list of agents. There are about 400 of them. They were 900. We revetted them.
Right.
So that is the first place they need to go to, because I know many of them are tech savvy.
Right, of course, Bwana PS.
Yes.
So the final thought is use the correct channels.
Absolutely.
To all the youth, ensure that you are going through agencies that are approved of and recognized by the government. Of course, there are very many opportunities abroad that a lot of Kenyan youth can take part in. This is The Marketplace. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. We had the PS for the Ministry of Labor, and we were just delving into upskilling and reskilling. Have yourselves a very good night. My name is Hibak Said.